Going to Chuck Baldwin. I can't think of a more perfect time to have him on because we carry his sometimes multiple weekly columns. Very well researched, great work that he does, and we're obviously going to get into his new book, but I want to get into Super Congress to target the Second Amendment, according to Larry Pratt. The bills now will originate out of the Super Congress, and there's no filibustering or amendments. And then if the Congress doesn't vote yes on their bill, then the Super Congress on spending bills implements it themselves. So it's a dictatorship over the purse between 12 members of the House and Senate and, of course, the 13th commander, Emperor, the Council of 13 chairman, dear leader Obama. But going, again, to Chuck Baldwin, author, radio talk show host, pastor, columnist, and, of course, he has ChuckBaldwinLive.com, and he was the presidential candidate and got a lot of attention, got a lot of good work done for the Constitution Party back during the last presidential round. And he joins us now to break down all the different things that are unfolding and taking place. The new book is Romans 13, The True Meaning of Submission. Pastor, good to have you here with us.
Alex, great to be with you again. Thank you very much.
Well, so much has happened, so much is going on, but out of the gates, before we get into Romans 13, give us your view and your breakdown of this new Super Congress.
Yeah. Well, Larry Pratt does yeoman's work in keeping the American people informed on what's going on relative to Second Amendment issues. And I know your audience is a pretty intelligent audience because they listen to you every day and the information you share. But anything that Larry Pratt puts out, people need to pay attention to. That's the bottom line. Unlike some of the other organizations that say they're looking out for the Second Amendment, the Gun Owners of America and Larry Pratt are really doing it. And whenever Larry broke this story, I just shook my head and said, you know, this is stuff that we've been talking about for a long time, and now here it is in reality.
Pastor, do me a favor. I can hear you pretty clear, but you're a little muffled. Will you get right into that microphone on your phone?
All right. How's that?
That is absolutely beautiful. Please continue with your breakdown.
Yeah, I was just saying that Larry Pratt is the one man that really, truly looks out for the Second Amendment issues in America. And as you know, you have him on many times. He is, when he first broke that story, I shook my head and I said, you know, this is the stuff that we've been talking about. This is the stuff that you've been talking about for a long time. And now here it is in fruition, just like the debt ceiling debacle. I mean, you predicted it. I predicted it. I mean, a lot of people. This is a no-brainer. We knew this was going to happen. Republicans and Democrats alike, they will not do what is necessary to discipline themselves to the Constitution of the United States. This is a debacle of the highest order, and you know, everything that we've been talking about for the last several years. I was in 2A when I was, you know, running around the country trying to get the message out after Ron Paul, dropped out of the race. And now here we are again in 2012, and the things that we were talking about then have now come to fruition.
Well, you're right. It is now coming to fruition. I want to get into Romans 13 and this attitude of rolling over to government. But, I mean, it's so arrogant. I mean, so over the top. And then there's not even a bigger fanfare because it's all technical and lawyery and in fine print, Chuck. But to say, oh, the bills will now originate out of a council, and then you can vote it up or down, but if you don't vote for it, then we automatically do this. I mean, this is bizarre.
Well, they're setting us up for this continuity of government. I've been writing on this for several years. I know you've been talking about it. The COG has been around since the 1990s when Clinton was president. It was intensified whenever Bush II was in office. And this is just the continuation of it. And then the Council of Governors. We wrote about that. You go to the FEMA website and you see that that America is broken down into 10 regions. They no longer even recognize America as being 50 states. It's now 10 regions. And the Council of Governors, the COG, all this stuff has been going on at least since the 1990s. But now what we're doing is we're seeing that this is now coming to fruition. They're taking the blueprints that they've had in place for nearly 20 years, and they are now beginning to implement it into public policy. And that is what's going on.
Well, you're absolutely right. And, I mean, can you speak to history? Because I know you write a lot about history. Those that don't know it are doomed to repeat it. And knowing history is the key to understanding our present situation and the future. To chart it, it's like charts of, of ocean waves. You need them or you'll run up on the rocks, but people just ignore it at their extreme foolhardy peril. But historically, tyranny doesn't just grow and then stop. Once it gets to this point, it has to go all the way. Number one, because it's greedy and enjoys power. But number two, because they've made a lot of enemies. And they've committed a lot of crimes. And they've got to get total control in their mind so that they can be secure and not get in trouble for all the crimes they've committed.
Well, yeah. That's putting it mildly. The crimes they've committed, we could spend all day talking about that. But I think, when the reason that Tim and I wrote this book, Romans 13, The True Meaning of Submission, is because the biggest reason that we are in the mess we're in today is because the pastors, Christians, and churches of America have simply refused to be the salt of the earth and to stand up as a resistance to this kind of tyrannical ideas, philosophies, and now activities that are taking place. They've been brainwashed in the pulpits and in the seminaries of America, this erroneous, fallacious interpretation of Romans 13 that the government, because it's ordained of God, means that it has the right to do whatever it wants to do, and no one, as a Christian, should resist. This is the most foolhardy interpretation of a biblical passage that I can ever think of. The problem is, it is pervasive throughout our seminaries, our Bible colleges, our pulpits. Every denomination is teaching this. I would venture to say that over 90% of the American churches, pastors, seminaries, and colleges are putting forth this interpretation of Romans 13.
And for those that don't know, all the World Council of Churches and before that National Council, set up, 100 years ago by the Rockefellers publicly, all they had to do was go in and give grants and lobby and take control of, the 20 or so big denominations. They order them what to preach, to the point of, I can play a newscast saying, it is of the Lord to go to FEMA camps, it is of the Lord to take shots, it is of the Lord to do what you're told, and go to the camp. I mean, that's a quote. I'm sure you've seen that newscast where they actually admit this, and we got the documents. Pastor Butch Paw did years ago, and then I got more documents here on Genesis, and then people didn't believe the documents, and then later they came out and said, yeah, we've recruited over 100,000 preachers to spy on you and to tell you to go to a FEMA camp. I mean, that's right out of Red Dawn.
Yeah, well, not only that, but we know that FEMA has these, as you already mentioned, these clergy-response-teams that's going around training pastors that in the event of a national emergency, quote-unquote, declared by the president, the pastors are going to be utilized by the government, namely FEMA, to encourage their congregants to turn over their firearms to the federal government. And I've had pastors, I've talked to pastors that have attended these seminars. I've seen some of the manuals that they have distributed. I've heard the first-hand testimony from some of these pastors.
No, we got the manuals. They even go on the news. But here's the deal. People couldn't believe it when it wasn't public when we first got the documents. Then they even admitted it. And folks said, well, I guess turning my guns in is of the Lord. But think about that. All over the country, for at least 8 years, secretly training preachers to tell their flock, hand your guns in, go to the camp. That proves they're preparing this, Pastor. I mean, that is such a huge revelation. Please continue.
Well, let me tell you something that I've learned just recently, too, Alex. Just a few months ago, last October, my family and I moved up here to Montana. We are now about 80 miles south of the Canadian border. I have met some people that are in the subcontracting business that are doing work right now with the federal government that are building throughout the northern border. It's interesting, not on the southern border, but on the northern border with Canada. They are building something like, I think it's between 35 and 40 of these Border Patrol stations, complete with munition supplies, complete with interrogation rooms, complete with shackles and rooms for imprisonment, et cetera, and they're building them right now as we speak all across the northern border between the United States and Canada.
And that's to keep Americans from fleeing the tyranny. It's meant, again, roaches go in, they don't get out.
Well, yeah, you got to ask yourself the question: why are they building this along the northern border and not the southern border? You know, the southern border is wide open; they're coming in, like through a sieve. And yet, here in the northern border, where there's virtually no problem whatsoever with illegal immigration, they're building these kind of facilities throughout the entire perimeter of the northern border.
And like I said, like a roach motel, the American people are meant to stay inside this thing, and that's admitted that it's come out there using Homeland Security money for the border for domestic operations and to harass citizens. Pastor, I mean, it is, for anybody who's been in denial and thought, oh, Ron Paul, Chuck Baldwin, all these people, Alex Jones, they're alarmist. Oh, really? We just studied history. I mean, even myself, it's happening faster than I thought. And as I say every day, it's one thing to intellectually know this and to spiritually know it. It's another thing to actually see it happening and to know it's only going to get crazier. How far do you think that this is going to go before this gets turned around? Or will it, biblically, do you believe, not be turned around? I mean, I know you've basically gone out to the middle of nowhere. A lot of people that are. I know I've moved outside town, and we can all feel it.
Yeah, I can tell you that since we have moved here to Montana, literally scores, and I'm not exaggerating, Alex, scores of families have either already moved here or are in the process of moving here. God is putting it in the hearts of people. I really believe that God is calling a remnant to himself, and this feeling, this inner gut feeling that the hammer is ready to fall, and we need to be in a position to take care of our families and to be around fellow patriots and brothers, who are like-minded, is burning in the hearts of people all over America. And I can tell you, I mean, I'm meeting them and talking to them every day. Did you know
before you even said this, I've had a burning to move to Montana?
Is that right?
Yeah, Montana or Wyoming, mainly Montana. I just have wanted to get out of here and get onto the top of a hill somewhere and do a daily broadcast, but that's it. Every instinct I've got is get out of the city. Get out, get out, get out. Is that what you were feeling?
Oh, boy, I tell you, we were feeling it for 2 to 3 years, and we researched, and my family and I, we researched hard, we prayed, we agonized, and we narrowed it down to the mountain states, and then from there to Montana.
Yeah, you had the big radio show, the big church, everything. You just pulled up and left. I'm sorry, go back to what you said you researched.
Yeah, we did. We left it all, and we researched intently, and finally determined the Flathead Valley was where we should be, and that's where we are. But I tell you what, the only regret I have is why didn't God send me here 10 years ago? Because this is just marvelous. To realize, to be around people that love freedom, to be around people that see what's going on, that know what's going on in our. We started a new fellowship. We call it Liberty Fellowship here in Kalispell, and it's comprised of people that know what's going on. When you talk to them, they don't look at you like the deer in the headlights stare. They appreciate the principles of freedom and liberty. We preach those principles every Sunday. I mean, the people are like-minded. There's a camaraderie. There's a fellowship, a true fellowship. And these people know what's going on. And they are, many of these people are prepared. They've been prepared. They're helping others to prepare. It's just a refreshment that I cannot express. I just love it.
Well, things are going to have to get really bad before America finally gets up off its knees, but it's starting to happen. Stay there. I want to get into the meat of Romans 13 and then phone calls. Straight ahead. Stay with us.